Welcome to. Oh, I have to do the poem. Here
Birds are gray, grass is green. You make me blue.
You've not been on this show before. Shut the fuck up. It's my poem. Here I sit with my flask. I have some questions I intend to ask. I hope you don't like this game, because if you do, shame.
I was going to say that would be lame, but, I guess saying shame twice also, kind of works if you're not really that poetic.
Okay, John.
And now I get to use the gif of the Game of Thrones nun. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
John, you're new here to the wonderful series our GM hates. Yeah. So let me explain to you how this works. Okay. I have a drink. It's usually a mug of grog. Okay. But I'm out of rum, so instead it is a flask full of a delicious cocktail I made called the Angry Tony.
Okay.
If the viewer would like to try one at home, assuming they are of the legal drinking age, an Angry Tony is a really cool cocktail. It's made in the flask. You take your flask, funnel, whatever. Obviously, make sure it's clean because these things are a bitch to clean sometimes. And you pour some whiskey into the flask.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready for the episode then?
Boo!
What? I thought we were going.
Boo!
What?
Boo, Tony! Boo!
Yeah, it's just a flask full of whiskey.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, no, I got
All
that.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. So let me tell you how this works. My name is John. For those who may be unaware, I do have podcasting and 5e reviewing experience. Did so for about 3 years. Been running games for about we'll say 9. I've been up and down the Cleric aisle. And today, I am also going up and down the Cleric aisle because I have deemed it so, and I have a beer in hand, so it's going to get real frisky real quick. Holy up, motherfuckers.
Praise be! Yeah, no, it's a good time. For the first time in RGM Hates history, my guest also is drinking, so that's pretty cool. That's Pog Champ.
There you go. Oh my god, what is happening? What are those?
I'm making my own weed.
Weed?
I'm making my own.
Allow me to
I'm making my own mead.
That's very nice. I need to pick up honey so I can start another batch of my own. I love the art of mead making. It is so much fun. So kudos. If you are new to it, welcome to the club. I don't know.
Yeah, that's respectable. Yeah. Unlike Tony.
I am new to it. This is my first mead. It looks like it's going well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope it doesn't explode.
Yeah.
Oh, when did you initially throw it into first stage fermenting?
20 days ago from the 5th.
Okay. 20 days ago from the 5th, so almost 2 months ago, month and a half?
No, less than a month. Like 16 days ago.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know why you had to make it a fucking riddle.
You know what?
Sorry,
Tony, I'm not making fun of you anymore. Spencer, what the hell?
What?
You're not even drinking it and you're drunk. What is going on?
20 days ago from
20
the 5th.
days
That's
from the
4
5th.
days from now. 4 days from now.
Coming 5th,
so subtract
but no one
subtract
says...
4 days from 20 and it's 16.
I have a degree. I want you to know I have a degree in marketing. I can't do math, okay? I can make people feel okay about worthlessly spending their money, not maths.
That's not my fault. You had to know some sort of, that's basic math. That's addition and subtraction.
No, it's too much for me.
All right. Well, fuck me.
All right.
But yeah, no, if you're a couple weeks in, the likelihood of anything exploding, especially since from what I saw it wasn't bubbling up too much, nothing's going to explode. You're totally safe. I'd leave it in there for another couple weeks, and assuming it's stabilized by then, I'd say definitely wait till it's stabilized a little bit more. Then you kick it into your secondary, and that's when you want to start letting it really age. But you don't want that primary to sit too long. You really just want to rack it right around when it's a little bit after, a day or two after at most, it stops fermenting.
Okay.
What alcohol
You sound
percentage you're going to
knowledgeable.
get up to?
I have no idea, and I didn't get that little thermometer like thing.
Oh,
or
so you
whatever it's
don't know your
called.
specific gravity?
I
Okay.
don't know the gravity. No.
What yeast did you pick up?
Whatever yeast came in the kit. So I'm very very new.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
I got for our anniversary. I got a kit from my partner.
That's fucking awesome. Yeah, we have a brew store nearby our house, so I go there for all my stuff. But that's super cool. Those kits are super convenient. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark and say if it's a basic brewing, like a wine brewing yeast, and you just have like a pretty starter, just honey and water mead recipe, that's probably how many pounds of honey do you have in there?
2.
Okay. You're probably only going to get up to like 8 or 9%, I'd guess. Okay. But the thing to keep in mind is when your sugars are that low, it's going to end up really, really dry. After you kick it into secondary and leave it in secondary for a little bit, take a sip, try it, see how it tastes. It's probably going to be drier than you'd like. I have had one that's fermented all the sugars out, and it was way drier than I'd like. Okay. What you want to do then is you want to get a little bit more honey, put it back in, do it just a little bit at a time to get the mix right, and then shake the shit out of it so the honey incorporates, and that's called back sweetening. After all the yeast is already dead, it's done fermenting, so it's not going to get back into fermentation. So it's just going to add a little bit of that sweetness back in to make it more like a sweeter wine. It'll cloud it up, but don't worry, that cloudiness will drop out after you leave it aging for another like 3-4 weeks.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So another couple weeks, taste it before I transfer it all. Like take a sip, make sure that it tastes right, and then if not, add the honey. Cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Rack it into your secondary, and as you rack it out, just put like a little shot glass or whatever and take a sip of that. It's probably going to be drier than you'd like, unless you like really, really dry wines.
So thanks for tuning into this episode of Mead Bros.
This is just a mead making show now.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing
our GM hates being on topic.
What I'm hearing is that we're gonna have a honey bun honey mead, and it's going to be a product
that's so good.
Going to sell. I think that'd be really cool.
Gotta start working on that alcohol license.
I know. I don't know the legality of it, but I'm going to check it out.
So I hope everyone learned something this episode. Now we're going to get stupid.
All right. Yes. So before we get stupid, can I just say something real quick? Just in how I'm. All right.
Here.
I want people to understand my angle of how I'm coming at this, because I heard that a certain someone was on the show at one point and talked the shit up about, 2024 D&D 5e and was super excited about it. And that's cool. Here's my angle, all right? As someone who's played 5e from pretty much near its inception, I am very, very cautious about it. I'm not as hateful towards it as our host here, but I would say that I am very cautious about the decisions and the things that are coming up from it. One of the things that make me cautious about it is its marketing trash. All right. Like, we don't know anything about it. It's not like we're going to know all of the mechanics of a system while they come out, but the messaging that we've gotten about what is the 2024 5e has been really mixed. And what it's ended up being is that it is I saw a video today of Jeremy Crawford actually putting it in probably the clearest that he's ever put, an interview with Ginny D, in that it is as much change from 4th edition to 5th edition without it being incompatible with all published 5e topics and books. But it's still 5th edition, which is like a little bit bizarre as to like, okay, so like, how are we going to distinguish this? Why haven't we named it 5.5? Like something trendy, catchy, something. 5e 2024 does not roll off my tongue easily. Okay, marketing stuff aside, though. Right? Because that's personal, professional gripe. All right. So here's the deal of like where I'm feeling from the perspective and what we've learned. For those who we're entering into this conversation with the NDAs for all of the influencer package player's handbook copies having been sent out 2-3 weeks ago to a bunch of different people. They got time to review. The Player's Handbook 2024 is now available for purchase, and the NDAs have been lifted. Reviews are coming out. So the information that we now have is a little bit different about, all these systems and things. What we can confidently, my perspective of what I can confidently say, I should say, is that all of the player-focused items are a lot more focused on players being able to use their stuff and a little bit less cautiously. And the idea of the balancing that has happened in the player-focused content is based around the idea that every player at the table should be able to use their character, no matter what class it is, to affect the story. They're trying to prevent the problem that sometimes your barbarian's going to have to sit out for a session and not do much. Sometimes your spells aren't going to land as a cleric or a wizard or something, and it's not going to work out. So a lot of these spells and things have been designed so that you can throw out your abilities and do stuff fairly constantly without much of like worrying about risk mitigation, so that you're doing things and having fun using your stuff. Is that fun? It's going to depend on what type of player and table that you run. If you're very resource focused, if you're very focused on the idea of your concept of attrition, in fighting attrition as a mechanic of the resources that you're spending and the lack of resources being a problem, and your spells and abilities being a resource, that is getting pushed away and more into this focus of everything that we're seeing. Again, that's going to be good or bad depending on your table. My perspective, I like the crunchiness. I liked the decision-making basis of, hey, I could use this right now and it might not work and that would suck. But if I did use it right now and it did work, that would be really awesome. I like that concept, but you also get that more in crunchier systems, typically speaking. So that is my perspective coming into this conversation of where we're at with the 2024 5e. Marketing sucks. It's more focused on people being able to do stuff, and the classes are balanced in a way that players should be getting equal table time with their abilities. Not necessarily, oh yeah, you have your DPS and your tank. No, it's based on time spent on a turn. That is my impression of what's going on here. We can get into it with some of the other stuff. I particularly, because I have a background in going through literally all of the published cleric classes, I did a deep dive on all of the changes made with clerics as it was available to me, because I haven't purchased the material, but I was able to find some of the material based on what YouTubers were saying, double checking some things, cross-referencing things, and what was available to me at the time. And and I have some thoughts, but we can get into that.
Yeah. So I read the free articles on their website, did zero research outside of that, and game bad.
Oh, this is going to be great. Okay. I see how this is going to go.
This is not a show where we have deep, thoughtful conversation. I mean, we do, unfortunately. But this is more a show where I drink and yell at stuff.
Okay.
So No, honestly, it's nice to have someone who's taken the time to be very
competent
in the topic. I wouldn't go that far. Let's
I would.
Make sure we temper expectations.
Oh, I thought you were angry and you wanted to yell at things. That doesn't seem like tempering your expectations much.
That's fair. Well, temper your expectations about me getting angry and yelling at things. I might just be sad and complain.
Okay, fair. It's not like you don't do that anyway.
Jon, fun fact, works with me, so he gets to listen to me bitch and moan about stuff literally all day. It's great.
It's true.
So, hey, Jon.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start?
Hey!
Bard sounds great.
Tony.
Good idea.
Art?
Bard.
Bard? Yeah, okay. Let's go over Bard a little bit.
Okay. I do want to let everyone know, including Jon, we are speed running through 4 classes today. Because we're trying to get this series out before we are old news. So this episode will cover Bard, Sorcerer, Cleric, Ranger. Next episode is the Wizard episode. And they haven't put out an article on Druid yet. So even though all the information is out there, I haven't given a shit. I'm a professional. A professional who's out of Angry Tony. So Bard.
Bard.
I'm gonna have to refill that. So, first things first with Bard. First thing I noticed, because it's the first thing that's mentioned in the article, is that Bardic Inspiration has been changed to be 1 hour long instead of 10 minutes, and it triggers after you fail a d20 roll instead of you choosing to apply it beforehand. All in all, good changes. I still think Bardic Inspiration is not enough to build a class around.
Yeah. That's building your class out of a basic buffing system is odd. I mean, it makes sense if you want to focus it in that way, but bards are notorious for not necessarily just buffing. I guess it depends on how you look at it, because from a video game standpoint, I'd more see that, but in a TTRPG perspective, you have the stereotypical bard, which is trying to romance every single NPC they come across, but you also have bards that are really messing with things, being the socialites, being the face of the party, buffing, but also doing some damage. But just being oh yeah, we're buffing now. It's I
think the mechanics of the bard are in this weird limbo where they don't have a high enough DPS to be a DPS class, but because so many of their mechanics are built around the Bardic Inspiration, that is also just not a very interesting or particularly good buff. They're not a very good support class either. So they're a mediocre support class with mediocre DPS, making them kind of just nothing. That's always been my issue with the 5th edition Bard, is that they're just, what if you had a really shitty Cleric and a really shitty Warlock and just glued them together? That's what the Bard feels like to me personally.
Yeah, I've never felt like the Bard has been exceptionally fun for me personally.
Flavorfully, obviously it's great. Flavorfully, the Bard is the best class.
Yeah, I mean, you get, if you're playing for some sort of flavor, Bards can be a ton of fun. But I think that it is, it is that idea, and I don't think that's, necessarily a bad thing that, okay, maybe a class is weaker, or maybe a class isn't a very specific thing very powerfully. In the case that, like, hey, you are running a PvE game and a bard is going to be more about what you put into it to make it special. That's fine. And that's good. I actually think that's good.
I just don't think it should be to the extent that the bard is, in which it's, if you're not playing the bard for the fun of the bard, they're a really shitty character to play. They're a really shitty class to play. They're not fun. They're not interesting. Mechanically, they're just not very good. And they're not very good in a way that is just very unfulfilling to play. And at the end of the day, if your character is based around specifically the flavor of a bard, cool. If your character is based around the flavor of having high charisma, then you could just play the absolutely busted ass warlock and still be a charisma player. Like, that's the thing is I think other than flavor for the people who are looking for it, the bard doesn't do anything that another class does. Like, I feel like you could make bard a sorcerer subclass and keep artificer in the game instead of dropping artificer.
Interesting. Okay.
Like, that's, I'm not saying you should do that. I don't. I think there is space for the bard, but the way that it exists in 5th edition and in 5.5, it'd be better as a sorcerer that gets bardic inspiration and has a couple other weird flavorful things as their subclass. Like, I genuinely think that would occupy a better space for them than this really, really just nothing spot that they rest in now.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I may disagree, but I mean, at the same time, I think that at least the core 5e, right, bard does kind of exist in a spot where, like, you want someone who's going to have fun at the table, but are not necessarily, like, maybe mechanically inclined and dedicated to a very specific thing. I mean, you've got, like, your second jack of all trades ability, which kind of sets the tone a little bit for, like, the whole class of, like, like a little bit of everything.
The world's most homogenous game where no class feels particularly special because skill checks have so little variety between them.
Right.
Gets the ability that makes them actually just good at everything.
Yeah. But I think that it's interesting that it's, like, again, one of the interesting things about, like, the 2024 Dungeons and Dragons being more focused on
5.5 here. You're okay.
5.5. All right. So, like, the 5.5 thing being all of the different classes kind of can push the story forward or push the game forward with their abilities, which makes some sense. I get, like, the mechanically minded thing, but it's also, like, the idea that, oh yeah, a rogue would be really good here is a little bit less powerful in the 5.5. So, like, I think it's interesting that you already have a bard who's kind of like the, oh man, like, we weren't prepared for this. Bard shows up and be like, hey, maybe with a little bit of mojo, we can get through it. Like, how is that going to be pushed further in 5.5, which I guess it's just, pushing it into farther into the buff territory, right? And just being kind of like your group cheerleader.
So much. Like, it's, I think it's not enough to push it any one way or the other. And I think I've talked about this in other episodes with other guests, but I want to reiterate for you because I think it's going to be a large topic of a lot of this, especially when we get to Ranger. My issue isn't with my issue with 5.5 in at large. I have many, but one particular one isn't that I don't like characters being able to do stuff outside of combat or outside of social or outside of whatever their main thing is normally. My issue is that the way it's fixed is incredibly lazy, incredibly boring. That's my main bitch is, like, we talked about the barbarian, I think the second episode. And with barbarian, it's like, okay, barbarian doesn't do anything outside of combat. How do we fix that? just apply his rage buff to fucking random ability checks. And that is technically a fix to the problem, but it's a shitty, lazy, boring one. And that's my issue with a lot of 5/5 is it's like, what is a feels bad about this class? Okay, what is the laziest, quickest, easy way we can fix that feel bad?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Pretty persistent across the board. Thank you. Yeah. So, Jon, I would like for you to pretend you know nothing about bards for a second.
Okay.
If I said,
what's up with bards?
Oh, so they're this weirdo that casts magic via music and wants to fuck everything, even though it's a very, very like boring and done out archetype. So I'm going to describe a feature for you, and you tell me what level you think you should gain something like this.
Okay.
Your inspiration that just gives someone a small boost to failed rolls.
A small boost to failed rolls. Okay. Yep.
So you get 2 of them back every time you roll initiative but have 0. What level do you think you should get that back at? Get that feature at?
Knowing everything else that I know, everything else about 5th, except for bards, I'm going to say 3rd.
3rd? Wow. I might go 4th or 5th. Okay. So you wouldn't have guessed 18th.
What? What?
So you wouldn't have guessed you can buff someone else's roll a little bit consistently.
What is a little bit? Sorry. At
18th. I mean, it's Bardic Inspo. So at 18th, it's... What the fuck is Bardic Inspo at 18th? It's like a D12. It's like a D12. So it's relatively significant.
I guess they brought it down from 20th level to 18, but still,
that's it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, 20th level is a bullshit. But, yeah. Also, the 20th level feature. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Superior Inspiration is bullshit at that. That's dumb. That's ridiculous. 20th level, Words of Creation is not that interesting, not that neat, but I think it's cool. It's cool enough. Did you see what it does?
Yeah, you always have Power Word Heal and Power Word Kill spells prepared. And you can possibly target a second creature with either.
Yeah, absolutely. Arc it to a second person. That's fine. That's neat. Whatever. I think utilizing Power Word as a flavorful thing for bards is objectively correct, but so correct to the point in which I actually think that that's not that interesting. I like it, but like... buffing another spell that you already have to use a 9th level spell slot to cast as your 20th level fucking feature, isn't great. Like, imagine if the wizard's 20th level feature was when you cast Wish. There we go. Wow. When you cast with, you get advantage on your rolls to never be able to cast Wish again.
Okay.
You'd be like, oh, that fucking sucks. That's really lame. I still have to use the spell slot to cast Wish. This feels like that. Power Word Kill and Power Word Heal are marginally better.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
That seems like a waste of 20th level, but it's got some flavor, so whatever.
That's fine. Whatever.
Any other quick notes you have on Bard that you want to make sure you mention?
No.
Wow. Sorcerer.
All right. Sorcerer.
I will let you go first on Sorcerer because I know how much you fucking hate the Sorcerer.
Oh no, I don't want you to realize that I went like all in on Cleric and nothing else. So I should not, in fact, go first on Sorcerer because the amount that I know about Sorcerer is currently being typed into D&D Beyond as Sorcerer 2024. Just for your information.
Okay, so cleric for you is wizard for me.
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, noted. Duly noted. So a couple quick notes about sorcerer. Sorcerers have to prepare spells now, like everyone does.
Okay.
The mechanic of preparing spells is bad and dumb, and I don't like it.
Okay, and just refresh our viewers for, what that is. I believe it's based on... Okay. I believe it's based on class level, correct?
Yeah, based on your class level. So, wizards, in 5th edition, wizards have this, warlocks and other classes don't, in which you have a list of spells that you know, and you choose a number of them and have them prepared every day. And so, like, some classes just didn't have to do this. They just chose spells they knew.
Yeah.
And they just had all the spells they knew at the ready. Or some classes just, I believe, Warlock just had all their spells at the ready always? No, that's not right.
No, they still
had to learn stuff.
Yeah, they still had to... You kind of had, like, a repository of spells that... I think their main thing was like they had fewer spell slots, but that they were always cast at max. I think they still had to prepare spells. I can double check.
They didn't have to prepare; they had to learn. And there's a difference: is your learned spell list. You had to shrink down into your prepared spells for the day. And other classes like the Warlock, the Sorcerer, the Cleric didn't have to do that. If they knew a spell, they knew it. That's it. Done.
I thought Clerics got to prepare their spells.
Oh, you're right. Clerics do. They could just swap out what they know.
Clerics
every time they like long rest for some fucking reason.
And I think druids can also do that.
Yeah. Really, honestly, wizard is the least like good feeling caster to play. Something that is such a big complaint of mine. It might be its own complete episode.
Oh no. On the wizard.
But here's one of the things that's so funny to me is that this entire edition is taking things that feel bad and fixing them in lazy ways. Yet the one biggest feel bad, in my opinion, having to prepare your spells that makes you feel so limited and so neutered, instead of finding a fix to that, they made it part of every single spellcasting class. They took my personal, this is personal, I'll admit that, my personal least favorite feel bad, the one that I hate the most, and made it a fundamental part of the game for every single caster.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah. So, like, I personally don't mind preparing spells quite as much as you do. But I do think that that is a feel bad of preparing that, right? And there's definitely like the balance of, man, create or destroy water is like dumb right until it's very much so not.
Yeah, and then you're like,
right.
Fuck, man, I should have had this prepared. And so you prepare it the next day and don't use it, and prepare it the next day and don't use it, and prepare it the next day and don't use it. And then you never prepare it again.
Yep.
Until session 30 of your campaign. It's immediately incredibly useful again, and you're like, fuck, man, I wish I had prepared that for the last 45 sessions.
Yeah. I think that there is an economy with preparing spells that is hard to crack, and each table is going to have a different level of, the usefulness of utility spells, depending on who you're playing with, right? If you're playing with a dungeon master who's running more straightforward encounters, like, oh, I'm just going to throw a lot of enemies at you. I've fallen into that trap.
Yeah.
Like at times, and frankly, it's like, okay, like you're probably not going to need create or destroy water, but if you're playing with DMs that like have lots of environmental hazards and things like that, like create or destroy water
lots
could be,
of dungeon
incredibly
puzzles and shit.
Yeah, it could be incredibly useful, but like the preparation aspect does put a hindrance on that. It is what makes some classes really fun, in that like clerics, you did have like that entire list that you already know that you just pull from. I guess it's still preparing spells, but then things like warlock spells where you know the spells. Sorry, I haven't played Warlock in like ages, so I had to refresh myself on like real quick on how it works. But
most people
all of the
who have
spells.
played a bunch of D&D don't play Warlock that often because the first class you pick because it's busted and fun, and then you only cast Eldritch Spell in the same way, and you're like, oh fuck, never play this again.
So like being able to cast from the few spells that at maximum level. Typically you're doing like damage spells, but then, maybe your occasional other spell, but there's issues with that too, but I digress.
Yeah.
Like
fun fact, everyone, if you've never played a caster before and want to foray into spell casting, but don't want to go too deep because it's a little too complex and intimidating, play a warlock. If you're not used to spell casting, they are fun as shit. Honestly, they're super cool. But yeah, so I figured I didn't actually have that many notes about Sorcerer, so I figured this was my perfect opportunity to bitch and moan about everyone getting the need to prepare spells.
Yeah.
I think that there is a fix to prepare spells, and we will be covering it in the wizard episode.
Okay. Interesting.
I do have something to say about the Sorcerer.
No,
that is a plus on my side. Mm-hmm. Getting meta magic at level 2 instead of level 3 is awesome.
Yeah,
having to wait that third level is, I feel like, insane to me. Like, if you get meta magic points, you should be able to use meta magic, and I think that they did the Sorcerer good on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's one of the things that 5th edition fucking suffered from so bad, man. And 5.5 is, I'm going to throw the biggest fucking air quotes I've ever made around fixing that. And it's
moving
the
it down.
I need them to be bigger.
Yeah. Fixing that. And it's the fact that levels 1 and 2 are so ungodly boring.
They are.
You aren't. You're playing a commoner. You're playing a commoner for the first 2 levels of 5th edition.
It depends on I feel like it depends on the DM though, because like you can have interesting play at level 1 and level 2. Because it lacks a lot. Mm-hmm. You as a player have to figure out your own voice and like how you want to play leading up, like even before you get all the bells and whistles, which I think is very. I like it story wise.
Okay, fine.
I will say
but I disagree.
That moving most of the things to the level 2 acquisition of like, okay, level 1 is your tutorial level still. Fine. Right? Cool. You're getting your basic mechanics down. 2, now you're playing with the big kids, right? Now you get your class abilities. Now it's your subclass. Now you get to choose the big stuff. And now you're running, right?
Yeah, now you're actually playing like a magical fantasy role-playing game.
Yes. I do think that is an improvement. I like how that they, like, for some classes like Cleric, where they've moved things from just level 1 acquisition of like, oh yeah, you know your domain. Of course you know your domain at level 1. Actually moving it up to level 2 is actually a good call to match with everybody else. I mean, like, I get that, like, it's gonna suck for like your level 1 field goods, but having a game run where it's like, okay, you don't get anything this time, you get something, this time, or looking over your table and seeing the confusion at early levels, where then you say, you know what, I give up, everyone's level 3, so that you all have your stuff at the same time. Now it's like, okay, we've all played Dungeons and Dragons before. You haven't, but you have some TTRPG experience. Cool. We're starting at level 2. And so that means you choose your class and you choose your subclass. That's what it means for everybody. I actually think that is smart from a DM standpoint.
Yeah.
Amidst some of my other feelings of like, but like, I do think that is one change that has been made that is good for tables and DMs. But one of the few.
Okay. I'm gonna say, I think
you're a contrarian and you hate me. Yeah, get over it.
I am a contrarian and I hate you. No, I think, and this is going to be so. This opinion has nothing to do with gameplay, game balance, and fun at the table. It is exclusively a flavor-based one.
Okay.
I think that clerics and paladins, especially clerics, should get their domain and subclass, all of it, at level 1.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I think all of it is tied to the god they worship. And the idea of talking to a player and going, oh, you're a cleric? They're like, yeah. You're like, what god do you worship? And they're like, I don't know yet. I'm just kind of testing the waters. Just seeing what I like. Is like... I mean, like... I don't like...
It feels bad, man.
Feels bad, man.
I don't think it feels bad because, like, when you're a level 1 anything, you're like, I don't, I just started this. I don't know what I don't know what I am. I don't know who I'll be. So, like, I feel like it gives you the opportunity to, like, flex and feel the class before choosing, like, this is the domain that I want.
Okay, it's fine for players who have never played a tabletop role-playing game before. It's fine for them.
Yeah, and that's that's what they want, right? They want people who have never played before to play.
Fuck you. D&D is for people who have been playing since the 70s. Yes, I was born in the late 90s. No, I don't care.
But I've been playing since the 70s.
You've actually picked up on something that I believe that they've culturally tuned into that I think is actually pretty brilliant, in that because there were the weird interweaving of, your level 1 to 3 subclass picking times between the different classes, and that most tables that are at least experienced would jump to 3, because that's when real D&D begins, because you get your subclasses and stuff, and everyone's then kind of like on the same level.
Real D&D sucks.
Then I get where they're like, hey, it's still nice to have a tutorial level. Let's have that, but then after it, we don't pull our punches. Everyone gets to 2. From the game design perspective, fine. I like it better. I get it from the flavor perspective of... I do actually kind of agree from a flavor perspective. And there's a part of me that's like, hey, if you are a veteran player, I would kind of hope that you know your domain ahead of time. Mm-hmm. But, in case if I throw a curveball at you at session 2 before you level up of like, oh, you want to, follow the demon king or you want to follow the angel of lights, right? Choose your path. Okay, fine. Whatever. We can do that if we want. I guess it allows for that. But I would also still hope that, like, you have your domain plotted ahead of time. That's a personal thing of like, I get where you're coming from though. Like, I think it's fair. I don't necessarily 100% with you, but I'm not against you on it.
If the audience hasn't gathered yet, I'm the fucking weirdo that wants to like track weight and track rations and all that stupid shit that makes the game unfun, but so more difficult and, in my opinion, interesting. I realize that there's a reason that I don't like the thing everyone else likes. But that is the reason that I say I know that level 1 is wonderful for onboarding because you're basically playing a commoner, and I don't want that. Not that I don't want onboarding. I think onboarding is great. In fact. But
Tony, you're going to alienate so many people, but also you're alienating me because did you know that I hadn't played D&D before this campaign?
I don't believe you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I straight up don't believe you either.
I love the idea that someone was like, I'm going to start a D&D podcast. It's like, oh, you like D&D? They're like, no.
Never touched it. Just a ruse.
Honestly. What is
needed a group. So
I'm going to start a D&D podcast. People like that. I don't know, video game? I'm not. Oh, that's fucking great. So I realize we've been recording for damn near 50 minutes for this 1 hour episode, and we still have 2.5 classes to get through.
Keep going.
So 2 very small notes on Sorcerer.
Okay. I was just going to say, we could go over Ranger real quick. Ranger sucks. All right, let's go to Sorcerer again.
Yeah, Ranger's trash. Ranger is bad and feels bad. No, I think there's actually a real reason to talk about Ranger. And if you want, we could talk about Ranger before we talk about Cleric, so you get to finish on a high note. Sorcerer, wild magic. The changes are good. You get to do more wild magic, and at high levels, you get a very, very minor amount of control on wild magic. That's fine. Cool. Awesome. Great. Love it. Don't love it. I'm sorry. I shouldn't use the word love for anything in 5.5. Cool. There we go. Arcane Apotheosis is cool. Arcane Apotheosis is the level 20 feature, and it is you can do your innate sorcery once a day, or burn some meta magic or whatever to do it, or whatever. You guys can fucking look it up. I've drank a lot of whiskey.
No. Get some coffee.
No. I'm gonna get more whiskey if you let me up for like 5 minutes. So it is, you get to use, I believe, there you go, 1 meta magic per spell, or 1 meta magic per turn for free for the minute or whatever that your innate sorcery is active. At level 20, you get a minute a day and can refresh it with sorcery points, where you get a meta magic for free once per turn. And at 20th level, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Feels good.
Yeah. It's 20th level, so it doesn't really matter. No campaigns ever get there, and it's just there to be silly, overpowered fun. So it doesn't really matter, but I just wanted to make note that, like, that's cool. I like that. As far as all the level 20 features, I think that's the one I like the most so far, I think. John, you want to end on a strong suit on Cleric and hit Ranger now, or you want to hit Ranger now? And
let's hit Ranger now. Might as well Ranger now.
Okay. Did you take any notes on Ranger?
I've been looking through Ranger a little bit. I have some feelings. So for people who don't know, I do really love Ranger despite its flaws in 5e. So I'm a big Ranger fanboy. I realize that it's a weaker class. But I'm big on playing Ranger.
I think I like the way that they took all of the flavorful and interesting things from Ranger and made them boring and shitty and dumb. I think that's neat. That's
you like it? Wow. Yeah. So let's. So the main thing that happened with Ranger, right? The biggest thing that happened with Ranger is it's very much so focused on using Hunter's Mark as like a class ability. You get Hunter's Mark at first level, and you gain the ability that as your class cast Hunter's Mark without using a spell slot twice a day. The other thing is that you may notice, casting a spell at first level. Yes, Rangers get spell casting at first level. And yeah, that's kind of like the main gist of it. So obviously, like a lot more combat focused class. We do within this see the acknowledgement that we have moved away from any sort of character that has exploration abilities and buffs just being dumped, right? Yeah. Which, like, honestly, like, as much as I'm like, oh man, that kind of sucks, no one's playing 5th edition that way. Who is?
I am.
Anyone?
I am.
Like, you are? I haven't seen you run a 5e game in like forever. Shut up.
That's because 5e sucks.
yeah. Case in point. If 5e had a good exploration mechanic, then maybe you'd be playing it. I have a really
significant opinion on this. This was one of the things that I said we'd talk about, and I'm talking about it now. I'm bringing it up now. This is what feels bad. What feels bad with Ranger is when you're playing a game with a DM that doesn't really do deep exploration, and so your favorite enemy and favorite terrain don't really do anything. They do a little bit, but not much, honestly.
Yeah.
So what they said was, okay, It doesn't do much, and it causes feel-bads in some games. So how do we make it more interesting, more flavorful, and more widely applicable? Turn it into Hunter's Mark. And the entire fucking conversation ended, and they never touched it again. That is the thing that fucking infuriates me about 5.5's design. Is it's such a fucking bullshit thing to be like, this is something that requires your DM to be a little more flavorful with how they run things, and your player to be more inquisitive and ask more questions and push things a certain way. So what if we just get rid of it and replace it with cast a spell a bit more, I guess? What a fucking lazy, shitty, stupid way to fucking alter a class. You know what? If you think Ranger is that fucking shitty that you just need to turn half of their mechanics into Hunter's Mark, make them a fighter subclass. Just make them a fucking fighter subclass. Fighter subclass Ranger. You can now cast Hunter's Mark, and otherwise you're just a fighter.
Get him.
Because other than the fucking animal companion and shit, how much is the Ranger really different than that in 5.5?
Go off, Tony.
This is one of the first times in the series that I've been like genuinely just yelling about shit. Because fuck the 5.5 Ranger. It's such an uninspired, fucking boring, bland. Whatever Wizards of the Coast fucking executive pushed for shit like this to happen. Because I don't believe a single game designer looked at this entire class and said, yep, I'm proud of this. I'm happy with this. This is the right way to build an interesting class for a role-playing game. I genuinely don't believe that happened. I believe this was an executive saying, we need this fast. We need this to take care of this. And I want to spend as few labor hours as possible making it. To whoever made that decision, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. If I ever meet you in person, I will marry your mother, fuck her, and divorce her. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Fuck you.
I'm going to have to cut that. I want you to know I'm going to have to cut that.
I'm a child of divorce. Divorce is okay. It happens. If you're living in an unhappy marriage, you should divorce. That is an okay thing. You should be all right with that.
And he's saying all of that for no reason?
I'm going to become your stepdad, and I will fucking divorce your mother.
Nope.
I'm mad about shit. I'm mad about shit. Producer, you can leave me being mad about shit.
All right. So here's the thing. I think, let me just say real quick. The thing about Ranger for me is that there's a lot of things that the stealth component, they moved away so that it's less like, oh, sneaky Ranger, because it's like, yeah, you have your rogue to do that, right? Hide in plain sight, vanish, gone, right? Removed. All right. So a lot of it is more so streamlined to combat things, but off the gate, it is more focused on, hey, what if you want to be a fighter who's just off the bat good with spells, right? And just mixing that up more. And it's like, well, you have Cleric for that. Well, you have Fighter for
Eldritch
that.
Knight.
You have Eldritch Knight for that.
Eldritch Knight.
Yeah, you already have that a lot, right? What is Fighter going to do? Personally, I think that when you look at the Hunter on Ranger, which gives you the ability to look at an enemy, and when you cast Hunter's Mark on them, the DM tells you information about that enemy. Cool. That's cool, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm using my class ability / spell to get information from the DM so that I can tell the player, oh, shoot for his eye, or he's, it's a troll. It's not resistant to fire, like whatever. Or it's vulnerable to fire. Like, cool. That's cool. Everything else is like, fine. It's not exciting, right? They made Gloomstalker not broken, but they still added it because it's the only subclass that people were playing because it kicked ass.
Yeah.
Tony, you have your hand
So, I just want to note, because I wanted to let Jon finish because I like him, sort of. I'm really feeling the whiskey right now. If you like the idea of the Hunter's Mark revealing information about like weaknesses and stuff about the monster you're fighting, If you like that idea, that mechanic, then talk to your DM. Or if you are the DM, talk to your players. Tell them that you should play Pathfinder and play a Thaumaturge.
Oh, yeah.
So
because that's exactly what the fucking Pathfinder Thaumaturge does, is their entire class is built around revealing weaknesses and strengths of the monsters you're fighting in cool and interesting ways. If you think that that is the only cool mechanic on the 5.5 Ranger, because it is, then just play Pathfinder and play a fucking Thaumaturge, because they are cool as shit. They're just fucking Van Helsing in D&D. They're so hype. I love them so much. Yeah,
right. This is now a Pathfinder podcast. So speaking of that, I've got a note about speaking to your DM about stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Hold on.
So we're gonna jump over to Cleric now.
Okay.
All right, Cleric. Notorious
Never speak to your DM. They took out the mechanics of speaking to your DM.
That is actually the point I wanted to make. Thank you, Anthony.
How did Wizards of the Coast give them the ability to actually become a god?
I will
get to talk to them anymore.
The head exec of Hasbro saw that you were treating your DM like a god and responded, "I'm the only one who's a god around here. Quick, get rid of those mechanics and up my paycheck by 25%.
Yep.
Oof.
Wow.
Oh.
God damn.
I'm sorry, John. You can go now. You can go off
No,
now.
it's fine. All right. So, Cleric. All right. One of the things that struggled with Cleric in 5.5, or not 5.5, in 5e, is that you had some subclasses that rocked, and then you had some classes that sucked. I personally think that's fine. If you want to play a nature cleric and hate yourself, that's cool. If you want to play a knowledge cleric and only be useful for intelligence clerics and show up on your wizard, cool. If you want to play a light cleric and burninate the peoples, abso-fucking-lutely you can. If you want to play a trickster god, yeah, go for it. If, there's lots of clerics, right? But I think what is important is how they've balanced the cleric, not in the subclass. Subclasses changes, they're balanced, right? Like, they made the really powerful stuff a little teensy bit less powerful, but in a way that's like, that's not too bad in context of everything else.
A lot of the 5.5 subclasses are fine.
Yeah.
Cool, whatever.
So, like, I'm not going to get into it, all right? You have your life cleric, you have light domain, you have the trickster domain, and then you have war domain. I think that they all seem fine and usable and neat in their own volition. I think war cleric seems a little bit more appealing, but that's also just my opinion.
That's because it's cooler.
So, although I will say, actually, subclass on trickery domain, one thing that they did change, which we actually had on Tony's character in my campaign as a custom fighter, was the ability to use transportation, which replaces Cloak of Shadows, which you cast invisibility, and allows you to, your duplicity that you cast, allows you to swap places with it immediately. And that's cool as shit.
That's super hype. That's super hype.
I think that's a really cool thing.
Come on, let's be honest. When it comes to cleric domains, there are the trickster domain, the war domain, and then the other ones if you want to play a stereotypical fucking shitheel cleric.
I don't think so.
That's what it comes down to.
I think hold on. There's other 5e clerics
Twilight?
that are really cool.
No. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm talking about the 4 that are default to 5.5.
I'm the expert on clerics here, motherfuckers. So cleric, so Twilight cleric is broken. It's cool, but it's broken. If you're into broken things, it's good, but it's also broken, and it's starting to make your other players feel bad. Grave is an interesting take on life domain that is higher risk, but higher reward for healing.
Dude, I can't tell you how disappointed I was when I for the first time in my life, read Grave Domain Cleric, and I was like, this is nowhere near as, like, varied and interesting as it should be. This is just slightly spicier life domain.
Yeah.
And when I say there's the 2 and then the shitty ones, I am exclusively talking about the 5/5 4 options, because let's be honest, light domain and life domain aren't anywhere near different enough as far as their role playing, as far as what they build into your character as options. They're both hi, I'm a goody two shoes nerd. Like that's.
Well, I mean,
if you want to play a goody two shoes nerd, that's cool. That's awesome. It should be one subclass, not 2 of them.
I actually really disagree. I think the light domain is very much so like, hi, I'm going to annihilate you with the power of God. May the light bequeath your soul.
Then just play a fucking war domain cleric and be like a weird crusader. Like, I mean.
So let's talk a little bit about like the core differences here. So first,
yeah.
So a lot of the subclasses in 5e were very focused on like, okay, well, like life domain, you get heavy armor proficiency, and then proficiency in these skills. This one, you only have medium armor. This one, you get martial weapons. Okay, forge domain is heavy armor and weapons, and stuff like that, and like a little bit of the like, oh, like what do I get from this one? So at first, I'm just going to say it out loud right now. I actually really enjoy the 2024 5.5 cleric changes. I think they're actually quite neat. I know.
Oh my god.
I didn't expect this going in, but I actually think that they're quite cool. So first level,
easy.
You go Protector, which you choose either martial weapons or heavy armor.
Okay.
And then
John, let me stop you right there.
No.
Divine Order, having your Divine Order level 1 choice.
Yep.
I actually have written down as a fun choice. I like that.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's really fun that at first level you go, hey, do you want to beat people in the face with weapons and armor? Or do you want to cast spells? Right? Choosing between your Protector, which is your weapons and armor proficiency, or Thaumaturge, which is, hey, you're going to add wisdom modifier to intelligence checks, mainly Arcana and Religion, but work with your DM if you want other ones.
Funsies.
Yeah, and an extra cantrip. That's cool. Great. Good job. That's an interesting and neat choice that has consequences throughout the entirety of your character. This also happens later. Let me see. There's a different one.
Yeah, it's
at level 7. You have you can either choose Blessed Strikes, choose one option, Divine Strike, which is like better weapon damage, or your Potent Spellcasting, which is up damage for spellcasting.
And can I just throw in right quick?
Yeah.
I love that if you choose one at level 1, you're not forced into the one at level 7.
Yeah.
You can mix and match. Why you would, I'm not entirely sure, but the fact that you can is great. That's wonderful. That's how it should be. The Divine Order and then the secondary version of it at level 7, whatever the fuck it's called, I actually really like those decisions. Yeah. I'm not going to say love. Because I don't think they're impactful enough for the word love to be applicable. I do like them. I think that's actually a really positive change for Cleric.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. They upped the amount of channel divinities that you get to 2, which is cool. Good. Sure. Honestly, like I've never seen clerics use like channel divinity enough, because it's always like, I need to save it for the right moment. What if this is the right moment? And then it's like, oh, it's never quite the right moment, right? Yeah. Until it's really clutch. But like that feels a little bit bad that there's this spot on my character sheet that like never gets used. So having 2 is like, okay, I get 1 that I can pop off when I want to, and then a 1 I need to pop off in an emergency.
I think. Go ahead.
You do get them back at a short rest, which is like everything is regenning on a short rest. It's based on, hey, we want you to use your abilities. Cool. I don't like that as much. That's a personal preference thing. I think that you should have the attrition to, hey, you need to be wise about when you use this stuff, but having the option to use one recklessly and use one when you need it is good. I like that a lot.
Hard agree. I would say I separate a lot of the changes in 5th edition, in 5.5, into changes to the mechanics and balance patch.
Yeah.
And I think the number of divine
Not it's Channel Divinity.
Channel Divinity. The change in number of channel divinities is falls under balance patch.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to praise a balance patch, because that's something that every video game, which is clearly half of their fucking inspiration for this edition, got him.
And everyone clapped.
Yeah, everyone was so cool. They were like, "Anthony, you're the fucking coolest dude. Your cock can reach
the goat."
Excuse
me.
It is a balance patch. So in the terms of, hey,
I'm not going to praise balance patches because it's something that like should have been a fucking FAQ. Like that's it, in my opinion. Go ahead.
In the idea that, hey, what if we reworked this in a way that is still 5th edition? I think it's what you could have done with Cleric, with it still being iconically Cleric, right? I think in that context, I'm going to balance it. I'm going to praise it a little bit more than some of the other stuff that we've seen, like Ranger. Like, oh yeah, let's make...
Fuck the Ranger.
Yeah, Ranger's a flavorless dirtbag, right? Okay, whatever. This is interesting. This is like, ooh, I get to make some interesting choices. I get to think about where my character goes. I get to make decisions after my character has experienced some shit. Like, that's all really cool. I'm down for that. I think that's lovely. What I'm not as down for, I get why this is a thing. And we're going to talk about this because I think it's in the context of everything else. Divine Intervention had an interesting change. And Divine Intervention is no longer a, hey, you want to do some wild shit, baby? Roll a D100 for me. And if you did not roll a number less than, I believe it's less than your character level, then it doesn't happen. But if you do, then it does happen. And you only do this like once per day, right? Now,
7 days, 7-day cooldown.
7-day cooldown, which is like quite a bit, right? Again, we're trying to, encourage the use of abilities here. So Divine Intervention comes in at 10th level, and it restores once every long rest. And instead of being a roll, you choose a cleric level spell under 5th level that doesn't require a reaction, and you can cast it. It's a free spell cast. Now, I have some feelings about this. One is, yes, that makes this infinitely more useful, right? Of like, oh yeah, I'm just going to cast, a 5th level, I'm going to do 5th level mass heal, right? Cool.
5th level shield. Oh wait, that's right. No reaction.
Right. I'm going to do,
that's right.
5th level cure wounds.
I'm going to jump in right quick and just say,
yep,
that's right. As a divine intervention, something that is about to kill you being blocked by God is not an option.
Yeah.
Just throwing that in there.
Yeah. I think that...
Wait. You're saying
it can't be cast as a reaction. Can't be as a reaction. Yep.
Oh.
So you have to use your action on a turn, so it can't be a reaction that you use this.
God cannot shield you. He's not that fast.
Yeah, it also means that you can't just cast shield on your turn and have it last until the end of your next turn. Because technically you could use your reaction on your turn to cast shield anyway. Just like, oh yeah, I'm just walking through the wood and constantly casting shield. That would be weird. But I think that what is really interesting is like the flavor of getting that really crazy pop-off wish spell, at a really low percentage chance. That payoff isn't there anymore, right? And like, that sucks. That does suck. We're getting to use our abilities more. But this isn't a, hey, you get to do it once per long rest until, it works, and then you have to roll again. Which is like, that would be a bizarre concept. That wouldn't be like the capstone ability or anything of this class. But like, what if you could just use a long rest to roll up the D100 and see if it happens? And if it does happen, then you roll, I don't know, let's say 2d4, and that's the amount of days it takes until, you cast it again. That would be silly, but that would be a really cool payoff. And then at 20th level, Divine Intervention opens up. And the only thing that changes is that you can cast a 5th level spell or lower, or you can cast Wish, which again, Wish is any spell, 8th level or lower, I believe.
It is also creating anything up to, I believe, 10,000 gold or less. But if you do so, you roll this is all spitballing, listeners. Google it because I'm going to get it wrong. You roll a d20, and on a nat 1, you can never cast Wish again. That's a caveat a lot of people forget about Wish, which I think is actually super fucking cool. I love it. But continue.
I think that what's interesting about this, right, is the wording of the ability means not that you make a request that is the equivalent to a Wish spell. You cast the Wish spell, right? This is really important because a lot of Divine Intervention, albeit, and this is the whole deal with 5.5, right? A lot of 5e DMs are notorious for like, oh, be careful what you wish for. And some really screwy DMs would absolutely fuck with a wish spell, right? And just be like, oh yeah, you really want this cool thing to happen, and your once in a class or once in a campaign ability just worked. Yeah, it doesn't work. Fuck you. That sucks, right? Now, I also have seen really cool executions of Divine Intervention with, the equivalent of a Wish spell, where like we're going to still add some states to this, but like it works, right? It does, like, we're going to make the thing that you requested happen in some way. And then I've seen other people say like, hey, this is a once in a campaign, opportunity. This happens. Like, I get what is your intent that you're going for. It goes for it. But for that 33% that are like, hey, I'm going to make this not work because I'm a jerk, doesn't work anymore, right? This is a like, oh yeah, what I say goes from the player. Now, this is important to note because a lot of the player-focused mechanics that we have in 5.5 are focused on telling the DM what the player wants to happen. As the player, me, I tell DM Tony a little bit of like what I want to happen and use my ability to make that so. Yes.
Can I interject slightly?
Yes.
I would say with a lot of 5.5, it's not telling the DM what the player wants to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's telling what the player does. Because a lot of the mechanics in 5.5 are non-negotiable.
Yes.
That's the only interjection I would make. But
so that is the thing, is that like my nuance of me saying of what I want to happen, right? That becomes like negotiable between me and the DM. But for Anthony saying, no, you said you want it to happen, and therefore you get what you want, right? It is the fulfillment of your ability that happens full scale, and from the DM's perspective, they don't get a take on it. Now, in a game that is being run by jerks, guess what? There's still going to be jerks. In a game where you collaborate with your DM, when you express your intention, the DM tries to say, well, for the fun of the mechanics of the game, for the interests of the story, here's what I would think I would like to call this as. That nuance and communication is really important. For the player to say, I get to choose what happens now, and the DM says, do I get a choice? Yes, that is an interesting power dynamic, but I believe that it takes away some of that interesting nuance in the middle and some of the natural story and mechanical, even the gritty, cool things that can happen when you have that nuance and communication. When you have some of these things that just happen, it changes the game. And If you like that or not is going to be up to your table, but it's definitely player centric and how it makes that happen. And I'm not saying that's a complete bad thing, but I am saying that it does remove a lot of that nuance right off the bat. And so it is going to change the culture of the game a lot in a way that we don't know how that's going to happen. I'm not going to say that this is automatically a terrible thing. I think that in a lot of ways it's going to be okay, but I think in other ways it's not going to be okay. It's just going to be different.
So I will say that it is automatically a bad thing because the point of this show is for me to be unhappy.
Oh, right. I forgot. This is your show, Mr. Know-It-All. Sorry. Excuse me.
My I would say the reason that I would generally say that this is on average a bad direction to take things is because, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but I want to elaborate on it further. If you have a shitty dungeon master, if you have a shitty game master, the mechanics giving you, the player, control aren't going to make them not be shitty.
Yeah.
If you say, well, actually, I know you wanted your big bad to be untouchable, but my fighter gets to turn their hit into an automatic success. Your DM, instead of saying in 5th edition, well, actually, their AC is 34, is going to instead say, well, actually, I turned their HP to 500. And congratulations, your game still sucks. Like, I'm sorry, your GM sucks, the game still sucks.
Yeah.
The fix for that isn't change the mechanics. The fix for that is empower you, the player, to fucking walk away, which the rulebook can't do. I'm sorry, right. The rulebook can't.
No, yeah.
So changing divine intervention from rely on your dungeon master to be fun to, well, I guess cast a spell for free or whatever, is, I understand the feels bad and I understand avoiding the feels bad. That is a fucking horrible way to do it. It's a shitty way to do it. To just go, you know what? Instead of asking your DM to be a cool, fun player, just tell them you're casting a fucking spell is just so boring, man.
Yeah.
It's taking a feels bad and like I said at the outset of the episode, it's taking a feels bad and fixing it in the shittiest, most boring, milquetoast nothing way possible.
Yeah.
And I hate that. That's why I hate 5.5. That's why I'm so upset about a lot of this. That's why I think the Ranger sucks. That's why I think Divine Intervention is fucking stupid in 5.5. I think in 5e it's not very good because it's too vague. I think this is a bad fix for it. It's my car isn't working because my brake pads are shot and going, well, we'll just remove the wheels.
Yeah. If it were me playing, another 5e game, one of the things that I would do is, if we were using the 2024 rule set, I would say, hey, you want to do one of the clerics? Cool. You can use this rule set. Everything up until 10th level here is good to go. Like, all of it, honestly, A+, right? Yeah. Honestly, it's good.
You may argue not A+, but go ahead.
But you know what? It's good. It's not bad. It is actually decent.
Preferable.
When we hit level 10, we're going to change this a little bit. And, this is either going to be how it is written, or we could have the wish spell happen here, but you're going to do the D100 roll. However, I am going to keep that you can try it again at the next long rest. I think that makes sense. Trying it once a week, like trying to keep track of time, like saving it for that one really critical moment, and then it's just like, oh yeah, 1 in 10 chance, that it works. It's probably, again, the payoff would be crazy. But you know what? You get together with your buddies, you're probably playing 1 long rest a day, 1 long rest a session. Just make it once a session. Once a session, you throw out a Hail Mary and you see what happens, right? cool. Like, if we're playing the 5.5 focused player action, the player deciding what happens focus thing, that's still going to be in line with that in a way that is fun for them and fun for me. And then I may say, well, because I gave you the ability to do the wish spell, it's going to be 44 instead of 2d4. But hey, that's still going to be like, it's still going to be fun,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how I would think of it, at least.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like, imagine that idea of like, hey, you have an X amount chance to cast the wish spell, and your fighter gets a luck blade. For those of you who don't know, the luck blade gives you, I think, 1d4 charges of wish. Your special thing that makes you super cool and special and interesting is that you maybe sometimes can cast wish. Your wizard, because they have a fancy sword, can do it 1d4 times whatever. Who gives a shit? Like, I think the right way to run Divine Intervention is on a 1 in 10 success. I think I would have it be wish, starting at level 10, which is busted and awesome, but it's a 1 in 10 chance. On a fail, you get the 5.5 version of it. Cast a spell for free, whatever. Like, hey, your Divine Intervention doesn't really work out. Improvise, come up with some clever way to use honestly, lower than level 5th spell for free.
Like, your god doesn't revive the entire army, but like, your downed fighter over there that's struggling to clean onto life, 5th level healing spell. Go for it.
Absolutely.
Fine.
Fucking great.
Okay.
Super great way to run
that's
that.
That's even more gracious than I would run it, but sure. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no feel bad there. It's still a cool thing that you only get to use so often, but every once in a while, it's fucking awesome. Yeah. It's the thing that you will remember for the rest of your time playing D&D.
Yeah.
It's the story that you will tell people who have never played to go, you want to know what D&D is like? Listen to this shit. Yeah. Like, that's the story it becomes when you attach something like wish to it on a 1 in 10 chance at level 10. Like, that's what that becomes.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think the current 5e, classes are typically for cleric a little busted, which is why Divine Intervention is like not super great until it's really amazing. But like, yeah, I think if you're wanting to eliminate feel bads and want to encourage like trying something, that's an absolute great way to do it. To like, hey, you still get your 5th level spell of your choice. Your god hears you, but is not going to intervene as magnificently as you hope. And when your god does show up, it's like, holy shit, it's really big. So yeah, wholeheartedly agree.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're over time now.
We're super over time. I would like 2 small notes.
Yeah.
2 small notes.
You've got a thing for 2 small notes, don't you?
I do. I have 2 small notes for everything. Divine Spark.
Yep.
Fixes a problem. It's a lazy fix. Your Channel Divinity being able to turn undead is very rarely applicable, so now it can just heal something or hurt something.
Yeah.
That's a lazy fix to that problem. And we've covered all of the boons they revealed on this show.
Yeah.
So since they revealed a new boon for the Cleric, I just want to cover that boon right quick. Yeah. It's the worst one, and it's stupid.
I actually didn't get into the boons, so yeah, please feel free.
With every single article they've revealed, they've said, here is the recommended boon for that class. At 19th level, you get an epic boon that's a very special, fancy boon, and the one they recommend for Cleric is, I think, the worst one. All of these have increase 1 ability score by 1 to a maximum of 30. That's in all of them. When you or another creature within 60 feet of you succeeds or fails a d20, you can roll 2d4 and add or subtract the result You can't do it again until you finish a short or long rest. At 19th level, you get shitty bardic inspiration.
Yeah. Just all the high level stuff. I mean, this is plugged 5e, too, but like a lot of the high level stuff just doesn't feel like that grand, right?
Yeah.
It's, divine intervention is the one thing that actually feels that grand, and it doesn't work for 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the one thing that's like, oh yeah, it's absolutely high risk, but like when it works, man, are you going to have a story to tell? That's just like, oh man, you really should have hit. Here's 2d4.
Here's 2d4.
I mean, that could make the difference, but that's not super epic.
Average of plus 4.5?
I mean, I could see that, feeling good of like, wait, I've got this thing. Just roll 2d4 more. That could be a big number, right? And then like a bunch of people are like trying to add in buffs to get it over. But by the time you've had like 3 or 4 people like throw in their buffs, and it's like, all right, I know I rolled 1 on these 13 dice. So that's going to be a 15. And it's like, yeah, you actually hit the AC of my boss. Oh, thank God this goblin's going to die. And people laugh and clap.
But that's the funny thing is, like, your bard was like, I added the thing, I got level 1 to that. And you're like, I added the thing, I got level 19 for that. Like, that's, dude, come on.
Yeah,
like, you have things like the ranger one that is recommended. That's like, I think it's like every time you cast a spell or whatever, just teleport 30 feet.
Yeah.
That's fucking dirt nasty. To be like... add 2d4. Like, imagine the fucking moment in which your fighter is like, I'm gonna do the killing blow on the big bad. Oh no, I missed by 3. And you go, I've got you. Here is my boon of fate. My 1 use per short and long rest. Go for it. And they roll 2 1s and get +2 instead of +3 to their roll.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely could happen,
That's what you wasted your level 19 on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just like, wouldn't it be cool if it was a D20? Like, straight up? Just like, that would
add
be insane.
a D20 to your roll.
We're like, oh my God. Like, if it's like, okay, I rolled a 2. I really needed this to happen, and it's a 2. It's like, here's a D20. Oh my God. Right, even if you rolled a 2, that could make the difference, right?
It's better than advantage.
Yeah.
In such a fucking cool way.
Absolutely.
So that's that. We've covered all of the classes except for Druid that we're not covering and Wizard that gets its own episode.
Yeah.
I have to pee like you would not believe.
Hey, same.
So
this is goodbye?
Go team piss break. Piss break! Team piss break!
Piss break! Piss break!
Piss break!
Piss break!